Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm here today to introduce a new type of video that I'm going to make for my channel called the hole breakdown. And in these videos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a particularly challenging hole for someone at my skill level, the recreational, or even novice to beginner, or low level, intermediate level, and try to break that hole down to manageable chunks to where it's easier for someone like me to either make a par or maybe save a bogey. With that said, I'm here on hole 18 of Northside Christian Church on the north side of Houston, Texas, and we're going to do a breakdown of this hole. This is arguably the hardest hole of the course, and I've talked with a number of people, personally throughout the years about this, and they don't like this hole, particularly because it's too long and it's too challenging, and there's too many risks with bad consequences on this hole, unlike a lot of other holes. So with all that out of the way, now it's time to start the breakdown. Hole 18 is a par 4. It's 709 feet, and the distance from the edge of the tee to where the basket normally is down at the end of the fairway is approximately 700 feet per Bushnell. And as you can see, just off the tee are a couple of trees with low hanging branches that basically force you to throw within a certain range of trajectories. The fairway is open right past the trees, but as you get closer towards the parking lot, it constricts some to about 80 feet from the edge of the sidewalk to the edge of the creek below if the water is at its normal level. Distance from the end of the tee pad to the beginning of the road that you have to cross is about 600 feet. So as a novice to recreational level player, you want to throw 3 200-foot shots to get close towards the edge of the street, and then an additional 100-foot shot to get close to the basket to then putt for your bogey. Now, if you're playing a tournament and you're in the MA4 or MA3 division, this hole might be rated as a par 5. Regardless, I would play this for a 5 because it is such a demanding hole, and if you are too aggressive, you increase the likelihood that you'll throw out of bounds or potentially lose your disc in the creek water below. Okay, right off the tee here on hole 18, I've done some calculations, and if you throw about 200 feet or less, closer to 180, there's no risk of you going into the street, and there's very little risk of you going into the creek because you just can't reach it. If you grip lock a little bit, you will most likely hit these branches, so that's something you don't really have to worry about so much. So the main thing here is not to worry about the street if you're going to throw a 180 to 200-foot shot. And I recommend throwing the slowest disc you can that will allow you to reach the 180 to 200-foot range for this shot. In this case, I'm going with an overstable approach disc, my pig, and I'm just going to go out that way, let it fade a tiny bit. Maybe the slightest of hyzers. All right, that put me in a good spot. Okay, per Bushnell, I've made it about 190 feet from the edge of the tee pad. I measured the sign, which is 10 feet or so back from the edge of the tee pad, or roughly the edge of where I threw, and that's at the 200-foot mark. So 190 using this peg. I had to put a little bit on it for me, for my skill and power level, and I only got 190. So I'm going to try that same play. I've got approximately 400 feet to that street that's between here and the basket. Actually, just do a stance. That's literally all I want. Okay, again, I'm going to repeat the same play of throwing an overstable putter that way and letting it fade. And I just don't want to go past the sidewalks. I need to focus up on distance. May have put a little too much on that. Nope, I'm probably 20 plus feet out. Okay, unfortunately for me, this disc was a little shorter than my intended goal. I'm approximately 59, 57 feet from these trees here, and the basket itself is 188 feet. So that means I got to throw a similar type shot that I've tried with the last 3 throws to get it kind of close to the basket. And this is actually what's the most treacherous. And you have now close to the basket bushes that make it hard to putt out from, and then of course a concrete slope leading down to the creek. Okay, again, I'm going to take something that's somewhat aerodynamic, particularly flat, so it'll cut through the air, but overstable, so it's got a blunt edge. And all I want to do for me is throw that with just a straight backhand hyzer with slight to modest hyzer that way. Other options are a straight shot with the patent pending this way, but I'm not good at patent pendings, or my accuracy dramatically increases with patent pending as well. Another option is sidearms here. In my opinion, maybe something quite this stable isn't useful unless you have kind of a sketchy sidearm. That said, 8+ feet away, I'll get this close so I can have a makeable pot. Okay, well that's pretty good. Let me do a redo. And I'm going to use my pig. Shout out to Flippy James for the idea of what to call this. You know, I'm not actually playing for score here, just playing single hole, but I'm trying to dial in what a shot I would use to try to make a par or potentially a bogey, save a bogey. Got my pig. A little more. That's what I wanted to do. That said, it's about the same distance. I think my mistake there was considering how much hyzer I'm putting on the disc. I went for discs that were too overstable. So I'm going to do another redo, try my Aviar3, which is more neutral, and see if I can get the distance with it. Okay, I put too much height on it, but it ended up in the same place. So what this is telling me is that on this shot, where I'm aiming higher, I don't have the necessary distance with the putter to reach it. So now I'm going to try a Mako3 and see how close I can get. Okay, it did go longer, but you see, that's the calculation you don't want to make. So here I am, I'm kind of showing you some of the things to do and not to do. And in this case, the better calculation for me is to use an overstable putter, but not a very overstable putter. So that's the lesson for me on this hole with this particular upshot. All right, as you can see, here's where the first throw landed. My fourth throw, which is a good 60 feet out. And then my other two throws with the corrections. Pretty decent, but again, these are very long distance putts. And somewhere in here is my Mako3. I can't find it yet. I'll have to look for it after I record this. But yeah, that's one of the dangers here in trying to go too long. And incidentally, the other risk from going in there is ending up in here. For some tournaments, this concrete is actually out of bounds. For other tournaments, it's not. Regardless if it goes in the water, it's out of bounds. Or sometimes they'll mark a line where the out of bounds is. So you really want to land between here and there. Okay, so here we are. We are approximately 60 feet out to save a bogey. And as I predicted, this would be a very hard hole to even bogey. I did make the play for a bogey. I was hoping that fourth throw I could get close enough to the basket, but unfortunately on the third upshot or the second upshot, whatever, the fourth throw did not lead myself. So I'm trying to get close enough to the basket to only take a double bogey on. Safe bid. I could have ran it, but given the wind and other circumstances, it's likely I could have picked up a triple. I'm just trying to limit the damage to a double. With that said, I can't be terribly unpleased with this result. I usually take a double bogey or higher on this hole, typically because I go long and out of bounds with the driver, or sometimes I'll get too cheeky with the mid-range and still end up out of bounds or in a really bad position, and it ends up being really bad. Side note, sometimes this basket is moved around the corner and back here. That adds an extra, I don't know, 40 or more feet. And that makes it even harder in some tournaments. And again, for someone my level, which is MA3 or recreational, that would have to be a par 5 given the distance, unless they bring the tee pad up. All right, well, that is going to do it. I'm glad you got a chance to see how I plan for tournaments. I tend to look at some of the harder holes more analytically and try to plan something for them before I get to the hole in a tournament. And sometimes in my practice rounds, I try to execute those. And unfortunately, in this case, I didn't execute it quite as planned. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, as we have more fun and unique disc golf content on the way. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.